Welcome to the Eddie Lamb Show. We dedicate this podcast to interviewing musicians of every kind, as well as online content creators on social media. Whether if they're starting out or if they're already on the rise and still growing, this show is all about having a fun conversation with our guests, talking about their favorite things that relate to their passion for their projects. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's have that conversation. When we consume media entertainment, it's a great escape from our busy lives for a little while to enjoy fictional storylines, music, and dialogues. Our guest in this episode is one of the biggest fans of purchasing physical media, digital formats, and streaming online content. He's also an online personality who runs his own YouTube channel doing reactions, reviews, and podcasts, letting his own commentaries on both mainstream and independent content. His name is MediaManDan. He's based in Chicago, Illinois, and we'll be talking about his favorite musicians, media personalities, and his collection of his favorite movies. Hello, everybody in the studio today. Well, actually, not in the studio. Our next guest is connecting with me virtually today because he's not from Vancouver like most of my guests are. This guest of mine is actually from the United States of America. He is actually, in fact, from Chicago. So I met this gentleman back in 2020, which was during the pandemic. And we met through a mutual friend of ours who we also connected through online on TikTok and Instagram as well. Fast forward to now, he's now my guest on the Eddie Lamb Show podcast. He reviews tons of things you can think of, movies, music, and other forms of social media. He's done it all. He does reactions, he does discussions, he does his own podcast. He has a great collection as well. If you're into collecting DVDs, CDs, vinyls, he's got them all, and you can geek out with him as much as you want. This guest is none other than MediaManDan. MediaManDan, welcome to the Eddie Lamb Show. How are you doing today?
I am absolutely amazing, sir. It's always great to hear all of the history that I keep forgetting because it feels like an eternity ago. But yes, it is so great to be here with you on your podcast. I absolutely love listening to Eddie, and shout out to him and everyone that he has worked with thus far, because Eddie only knows the best people, and that's who I promote on my podcast. So it's so nice to be a guest and also to have some incredible friendship with the person that is interviewing me that knows me for more than 4 years. This is insane, man. The world has changed, but we're all the better.
well, I tell you, the funny thing about this is that we didn't know how long this whole thing during lockdown season was going to last. But I knew that the minute we met and as time went by, we were still going to be in touch, because I think what brought all of us together, that whole crew, the virtual open mic crew, was our interest for similar music, similar movie taste, our favorite YouTubers, content creators of every kind. We just yacked about it for ages, and we even have group chats with the whole crew too, and just geeking out over the new albums that are out, the new movies that are out. What did we like? What did we dislike? And you know what's really great about that part on the dislike side of things? We were brutally honest with each other, and we didn't judge each other for that either.
It's so true, man. And when we were in those group chats, we were creating conversation that created a community that Joseph had already created, but we were like becoming friends and becoming family. And that was the most exciting part of it, is that here we are in the middle of the most devastating time in the world.
Yeah.
And we are, struggling on our daily lives, trying to figure out what we do. I mean, I was probably the only one that still had the job since I was an essential worker, and you guys were all working on your own things. And we just bonded like family. And it was a beautiful connection that I created with you, especially thanks to Joseph for recommending that we would chat. And he knew that we were going to have perfect chemistry. And here we are 4 years later. I'm on your podcast and I have my own podcast. Like, we're just following in each other's footsteps, man. It's crazy.
And that's the thing. It's been great. And not to mention the time zone differences, despite all that, right? Like we got yourself, you're in in the central part of America. For me, I'm all the way at the West Coast, and so you're 2 hours ahead of me, but yet we have Joseph, who's 3 hours ahead of me, 1 hour ahead of you. And our friend Jaden in Canada, who is also East Coast as well, 3 hours away from me in terms of time zones. But the funny thing was, the other Jaden, or as we call him J1, located in West Coast as well. And you know what's really fun about that? In fall 2023, it was November 2023, he and we finally met in person when I went to a trip to Seattle. And we met at an open mic night that I found on the internet. And I said to Jaden, hey, look, my wife and I are going to hang out there. You want to come and just check out the music, or maybe you want to play a few songs? So Jaden and his brother went, and we all met, hung out, and it was just a fun time.
It was so cool to see you guys on picture or on the same area together. I should just rephrase this all. So it was great to see a picture of two people from the JCV group together. Like I was so happy to see that. I know that the only other people was me and Taco way back in like 2021 or so. And that was because,
or
we
that
were
one time
local.
Yeah.
Or that one time when Joseph and Madison were hanging out on that live stream that one day on Instagram. And I was just like, my mind was blown. You know that kind of thing, where it's like when you watch Avengers Endgame when all the characters are together in that one rooftop, or under one roof. It's exactly that same feeling. So that was quite the collaboration to see Joseph and Madison under that same live stream together in person with each other. And here we were geeking out because we were like, what? And then, of course, I forgot they're in the same state together. And so it is no surprise when that happens. But then remember that picture? Again, sorry to apologies to our friends ahead in advance for this if we share this. But remember that one picture when Joseph and Young Pop, Nick, aka Young Pop, they had that one picture together as well. And I remember, I forgot how I met Young Pop, but I know we crossed paths some. Oh, no, I think I remember how. Because he interviewed a YouTuber that I followed. And then when I talked to Young Pop, he and I would just got along so well. And then I introduced him to that whole crew as well. And the fact that they were from the same state also. So Young Pop, Nick, and Joseph, they're both in Florida. And there was a picture of both of them together. And my mind was just blown away about that.
Dude, I love that you brought up Nick, because not only have we been talking, and we've been talking about you as well, all good things, man, because
Nice.
You rock.
Thank you.
But I'm going to have Nick on the show, I think either next week or the week after.
You know what? I can see both of you guys having awesome chemistry together. I am so confident it's going to turn out really great between you two.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And his humor. Oh, my gosh. That's what I have to focus on when it comes to Nick. His stories. I don't know if you follow everything that he always posts, but he finds the funniest like dad jokes and just ridiculous lines that I could only imagine, like searching all through the internet just to find a nice little tidbit. And they're all in his story. So I'm like, thank you, Nick. I know what to follow. All these accounts.
But what's so great about him is that this guy is an old soul in terms of his musical taste, which is amazing. Like, he loves Bruce Springsteen, and I did an interview with him about that years back. But the fact that he loves Bruce Springsteen, Kiss, all those classic rock tunes that a lot of us do admire, and it's just that, wow, like this guy has a wide variety of musical taste, but when he emphasizes people like Bruce Springsteen and Kiss and whoever else from the classic era, that shows, man, like that guy is open to anything, and he's got great taste, man.
So incredibly true.
Yeah. But speaking of musical taste, Let's talk about this, Dan. I remember the first content I've seen from you was you reacting to different albums, different music videos. So let's hear you out. So what got you into reaction? What got you into reacting videos in the first place, or just reacting to different media content?
So it all started with the first content that I was producing, which was back in 2019. I had this dream of being the next Chris Stuckman. Like, I want to talk about movies. I want to talk about all this stuff that I love, and I want to put myself on camera. And I was so nervous in the beginning. But then as I progressed, I got more comfortable with it, and I still didn't know how to edit yet. So I was doing long take reviews and doing like album reviews and artist reviews. I had like a whole video that was unfortunately no longer here. You can't find it anywhere because it's deleted, but I did like this whole thing about Eminem.
Oh, too bad.
I had a lot of facts that were missing, but I was just so proud of that. And so the singing content started sometime in the summer of that year, 2019.
Right.
So I was like getting some more views, I could say, from the music content. And then it was during the pandemic, during the time where you and I met and Joseph was running the show and everything, where one of the first to 11 people that I was also in a group chat with recommended that I should try reactions because they think that I had the personality for it. So I said, if you're going to watch, I will do it. I will always follow through and give my fans what they are asking for. That is my 100% like business plan of all plans, is to show that I actually care about my fans.
That's right.
Like Finn McKenty.
Yeah, unlike certain content creators.
But yeah, I felt so good. The first time I ever did a reaction, I was so freaking nervous, but I felt so good talking about a band that I knew at the second reaction, which was Starset. And I really loved that video overall. I loved talking about what I saw. I liked the weird angle that I was on, and just putting it together, editing that together.
Yeah.
I was like, I could do this. This doesn't take too much time. This doesn't take too much effort. And here I am 560 reactions later, and it still feels like no effort. It's so crazy, man.
Yeah. And going back to Starset, what do you think sets them apart from other bands?
Well, if I'm going to talk about Starset, then I have to talk about Red, because Red is the reason that Starset exists. I mean, Dustin was in his own group, but at the same time, Red's producer was the one that helped Starset create their sound. I would say Starset is the ultimate astrology kind of band. I guess you could like not put it in the case of like zodiac signs or anything, but like they're literally astronauts and talking about space and science fiction. And now they're in post-apocalyptic, like nightmarish AI stuff. So they're just ahead of the curve when it comes to space. And there's not many bands that focus their stuff on space besides a few songs here and there, like Exist from Avenged Sevenfold definitely had a Starset feel.
Would you ever, like, let's say, they get, like they play stadiums and all that stuff. Would you pay good money to go see them live at a big platform like that?
Absolutely, yes. I was just talking to somebody who really loves them, and that was the podcast that just dropped yesterday. There was this huge like discourse going on about how they perform live, and it's like auto-tuned or backtrack or whatever it was that they had as criticism. And so these people were like, oh, well, they sound great in studio, but you don't have to see them live. And this man I should say, the band Havoc Faction, he was like, I saw them live. It's absolutely worth it. And they put on an absolutely tremendous performance. Like, they are so thematic, and they will put this theatrical piece after theatrical piece on stage, kind of like a Muse show, kind of like Korn, Slipknot. Like, you're just getting a actual like event in front of your face instead of just let's sing in front of a bunch of people.
Yeah, because when you mention Korn, like, you think about people like Jonathan Davis, right? Like, like people like Jonathan Davis and that whole crew from Korn, and for me, I grew up with early Korn, like back from, late 90s to mid 2000s, right? But you knew that these guys, one of the best eras in my personal opinion, but you knew that these guys were going to go outside the box, and that with the live shows, they don't disappoint. And despite the controversy of, let's say, of Woodstock, right, being, you have to admit that when you watch the live clips of them performing on that big stage on Woodstock 99, you saw how wild that crowd got.
Yes. And dude, that's how metal is supposed to have a response. Like if you don't have that, you're doing something wrong, or the crew is just not not in it to win it. And so I should also mention another band that I'm really into nowadays, and that's Ice Nine Kills, where they're doing costume change after costume change, much like In This Moment, who they actually toured with. Both of them doing costume changes between each set. It's like, that's the extra effort that the fans come to see. Like, you expect it because, these people have done it so many times. They're masters of that craft. Not every band has to. My favorite band, Red, does not do that, but I still really enjoy their set and I really enjoy their music. But knowing Starset takes what Red does and perfects it and adds so much more theatrics to it, I'm like, who wouldn't want to watch that? So if they ever played in arenas, I would be so happy. And I hope Red would be the headliner and they'd be the co-headliner. That would be an epic concert.
And speaking of the epicness too, so we're talking about like costume changes, props, things that can bring so much value to the live shows, right? I mean, look at all the other bands that also have that kind of stuff too. Like, we obviously know Slipknot is one of those bands. They have these costumes, the masks, and everything like that. Ghost is another example too. How they dressed up, right? And then you also look at, I remember like when I went to see Avenged Sevenfold in 2009, and it was during that time when the Nightmare album was out, and they have this huge haunted house prop all set up, right? And that was theatrics itself. They didn't wear costumes, but they definitely knew theatrics when it came to that kind of show, because, they're one of the main attractions, right? And so if you're promoting this album, you may as well go all the way with it. And Avenged Sevenfold delivered with that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And that's their best album overall, in my opinion. Like, Nightmare is just something so special, and it was in honor of Jimmy. And that was just a huge tribute to what that band was originally sounding like. And then The Stage comes out a couple albums later, and they just show that they have changed direction altogether. But they still got that same passion that they did from Nightmare. It always stuck with them. Even on Life is But a Dream. Not my favorite record.
Oh. But speaking of records, you have one heck of a collection. So for those who have not seen Dan's videos yet, I really suggest you should, because in the background you'll see his movie collection, CD collection. He's got it all. He's not called MediaManDan for nothing. He has physical media at home. And if you ever want to talk about any of his favorite movies that he has or CDs that he has, bring up an album. If he has it, he'll go down a deep rabbit hole to talk about it. So with you, and with you collecting all this amazing media, I'm assuming it's because you have a special connection with these movies, for example.
Oh my gosh. So when my collection first started, it actually goes with the guy that's behind my head right now. I was obsessed with Eminem. Like, I didn't know that would be my big thing. Especially when I was going into high school, I was very judgmental of rap music, but I fell in love with his sound. And so collecting Eminem stuff, going out of my way to find songs that didn't even exist, like these songs that are hidden from the internet these days. It was so fun. And it was like this adventure that I was on of like, I need to gather all of it and be like, I found it first. This is mine. It's kind of like the collector's mindset is like, I got the best version of everything, But when it came to my other stuff, especially movies, movie collecting with DVDs even, I was so obsessed with finding my favorite movies. Even if they weren't even the best movies overall now, I could say, like, I had some interesting taste. But I can look back and be like, why did I get that? Because I loved it. Because I loved that one scene, or I remembered that one character. It always has had this impact on my own, like, self, like exactly what I see in a film, usually, especially my favorite film, Baby Driver. I can be that
Yeah.
character. I am Baby Driver in some cases. I am Deadpool in some cases. I am Batman in some cases, Spider-Man, in even Marty McFly. I mean, there's so many characteristics that really connect to me. And so I try to collect those
Yeah.
movies. I also collect movies that I find absolutely insanely underrated. Like there is a movie called The Green Book. It was a very big Oscar winner. But then there are movies like,
Right.
I don't even know. I have them right next to me here. I was going to say it came out a couple of years ago. But whatever it found, I was like, nobody was talking about this, and I loved it, so I must have it in my collection. And that is like just my way of like giving the right mentality to those that are creating great content, whether that's music or movies or TV shows. I've collected as much as I possibly can, and what you guys see when you see the videos is a third of my collection. This is one
That's the
third. It's a
thing.
big third, but it's one third of it. I have 3 collections.
But that's the thing, character connection. Like when you were saying that, like, yeah, like on some days you feel like Marty McFly because that one scene you're like, yeah, I know exactly what he's going through because I've been through it myself. And it's fascinating because I feel like that's what makes a good movie is the relatability side of things. I mean, I love like you and I, we love movies because it's entertaining. Number one, that's at least that's for me. Like number one is entertaining, but number two, there's some sort of connection somehow because the characters are relatable. Number three, of course, the main thing is that they're telling a really solid story.
Yes, and the story that we usually get from a fantastic film is going to be tremendously well done to the point where you can think of one scene or one song and you'll be transported back to that scene. Baby Driver has multiple moments where songs that you never heard of, or maybe you've heard all your life, you can be transported back into that and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so epic. I need to rewatch that movie. It just builds that hype up again, like it was the first time watching it. And I'll tell you, the first time I ever heard the what is the sweet song from Spider-Man, like every time I see it or hear it in a story, I'm just like, I got to go watch Spider-Man again. Like there's no other way to get through this day without watching Spider-Man again because that song is now in my head. I cannot escape from the incredible Andrew Lloyd Webber. Is it Andrew Lloyd? No. I got him wrong. I was thinking of the nanny. What's it? Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman, yes, that's right. Yeah, and in Danny Elfman, I mean, because that's the thing. What a genius! Because I've talked to other people about Danny Elfman of how talented he is as a composer, right? When he does all these Tim Burton movies too, like going back to Nightmare Before Christmas, the theme from Batman during the Michael Keaton and Val Kilmer days, right? Like, the theme song is just unbelievable. And even though some of the sequels were not really the best, but still, the soundtrack was still there. And he composed the Simpsons theme song as well. But this is the same guy who also wrote the theme to Weird Science with his 80s band Oingo Boingo, right? And
he's in Oingo Boingo?
Yeah, wait, you didn't know about this? Yeah, so this is the guy behind Oingo Boingo. Yeah, so it's all thanks to him. It's all thanks to him that Weird Science was the hit.
I have to see this film. I have to see it. There's got to be so much that makes sense now. I mean, Oingo Boingo, I've heard of. I've never gone deep into, but I know of that. I did not know Danny Elfman had anything to do with them. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and in fact, and this is the thing, too, because it's almost like that kind of cool thing where, you start off being a rock band, and then after that, you start writing for movies. And I think that's a really cool direction where you can take your music career to, and this guy has been doing this. Yeah, and and he's been, with him being the lead vocalist and the songwriter for that group. during the 80s, and then the next thing you knew, he started writing for movies. I'm like, what a jump, because who else would ever go that route, right? I mean, of course, you gotta give credit to, Nine Inch Nails, right? Trent Reznor. Trent, composed for Nine Inch Nails, right? Writes all the hits and everything like that too. But yet, when he did I think he did the Social Network soundtrack.
The social. Wait. Nine Inch Nails had to do with The Social Network, the movie with Jesse Eisenberg playing Mark Zuckerberg, the robot,
Yeah,
the weird human robot.
yeah, Trent. Yeah, so Trent himself did the soundtrack for that. So all this synth music stuff you hear, that's him, and I think he got an Oscar for that, if I'm not mistaken.
Dude, the composition. Okay, so first of all, for the people that have not seen The Social Network, it is not this is a fun movie. It is not like that. But if you are interested in the story of how Facebook was created, and if you enjoy Jesse Eisenberg's performance, I highly recommend going and seeing it if you can, if you have not, because it is actually a really good drama, and it has good stakes. And the music, now that you're talking about the composition, is what drives the story forward. Like, it does not feel boring like you would imagine a drama to be.
And that's the thing, because this is like the Facebook biopic, right? And even though not everything's accurate on Mark Zuckerberg's history, but you can't deny that business drama is honestly, I don't know what it is I'm fascinated by. I think, is it the lawsuits, or I don't know what it is, but I just think for me, the reason why I'm drawn to movies like The Social Network, or even the McDonald's one, The Founder, is like these business dramas were real life situations. Basically, these are like real life business biopics where you see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
It's so true. And speaking of good, bad, and ugly, another movie that I really, really need to see. I also will say this. You were talking about Batman before with Danny Elfman and the soundtrack for that. Think about this. His soundtrack that he created for the most awesome character in DC history, and you can argue it, but like that soundtrack is iconic. It was so iconic. It was used as a theme inside of the animated series, which is also an iconic Batman, and you get two of them. Yes, all thanks to Danny Elfman. Along with that, you get Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire ones, all Danny Elfman. You have so much that you could do with Tim Burton as well. You're talking about his greatness, but you also have like composers like Walter Murphy for Family Guy. Like, these are iconic composers that can work in any genre, and they just fit in what they have been asked to work with. And so this is the craziest connection, and I always do a crazy segue. I'm sorry, Eddie, for stealing the show here.
This is why we're here, honestly.
You were talking about how all these composers like start out in rock bands. Crazy thing. I worked in a hotel back in 2016 to 2018, and there was a guest that stayed there who was friends with I was going to say Zack Snyder. That's not true. With Hans Zimmer.
Really?
Hans Zimmer was friends with him. Why? Because this man in the band Love, Sex, and Death was pretty big in the 90s, and Hans heard his music or met him at a club or something like that, and they ended up becoming friends.
No way.
Mr. Inception, Mr. Lion King, incredibly deep kind of sounds, to be chilling with someone that is in the smaller band, just growing like 90s grunge type. It's so cool to see how much they respect all types of musicians. And, like I said, I always give out as much love as I can to my guests, because they are the little guys. They are the Love, Sex, and Death. And if there's any way that I or you or anybody in the podcast world can help those guys get up to the top to be the next Hans Zimmer, that's what I live for. That's what I am here for.
And this is the thing too, because you and I, we respect movies for their compositions when it comes to adding music, because it adds to the story, and depending what story it is. But if it complements the story so well, if it, even if it complements even just that one scene in a movie, it makes a huge difference.
Yes, and Baby Driver is my number one movie because the movie is propelled by the music. Edgar Wright had this like brilliant idea. I was going to say genius, but it's brilliant to have every single song propel each scene forward and to say what would these characters do in order to be in time with the rhythm, in time with the overall feel of the song. And my favorite thing of all in the whole movie, which is like why I love it so much, the lyrics connect to the story. There's one specific scene I will never forget. I saw it at least the fourth or fifth time when I was watching. I was like, there's got to be something I missed. And there always is. I've seen the movie 65 times and I keep finding something. But there is one moment where they have to walk into the diner, and it's already been established that Baby and Deborah are a thing. So you've had this chemistry, you've had this like love, you've had this care, and you could just see that it was like his major escape from this crime world. But now here the crime world is, and they're walking into the diner where his love of his life is, and he has to pretend like he doesn't even know her to keep her safe. And then that moment in the movie, there's a song called When Something's Wrong with My Baby. It's so genius. So genius. And so I will never forget, like, I got chills just thinking about it right now. That's how much I love that scene. It's like there's just something about it. It speaks directly to the audience without holding your hand and being like, here's what's going on. It has that subtlety, but it's so powerful with how he chose these songs to represent his story. It's amazing. Absolutely love movies and music, and I will talk to the end of time. If any of you guys want to hit me up in the DMs, I'll let you know that Eddie, as well as thousands of other people, have been spammed with links in the first 2 hours of any conversation with me. If I know that they haven't heard or haven't seen something, I send them a link, and then that link adds up to another one, and then I say, oh, you got to check out this, and now this, and this. So yes, please, if you can, check out my links.
Please, yes. If you need some stuff to listen to, Dan will be your resource for all the songs you need to build your playlist.
Yes, sir. All right.
And speaking of songs, I'm going back to Eminem because the thing I loved about Eminem, and I'm sure you can agree with me on this one, is, each album was so different from, like the early part of his career, from the late 90s to mid 2000s. Starting from, was it the Slim Shady EP, and then it was a Marshall Mathers LP after that, I believe. No, Slim Shady LP,
Shady EP, and then Slim Shady LP. Yeah.
So yeah. There we go. And there's a Marshall Mathers LP, which was, I think, probably like his big, like it was like one of the best in my personal opinion. And then the Eminem show after that, right? And the cool thing about that with the Eminem show was that there were 20 tracks on that, right? I think it was like 20 tracks, and I don't know. It was one of those rare albums where, like, wow, there's a lot of tracks on there. I could have gotten bored maybe after 10, but having 20 on there and not get tired of it, like, I don't know. That just says a lot about how great that album was. Like, what are your general thoughts about that?
So, in my opinion, Eminem's best work was right after the Marshall Mathers LP. His absolute best album is the Marshall Mathers LP, but everything he did after that, he was just trying to show that he could fit anywhere. Like, that's what he was doing with his much later 2010 stuff as well, working with Tech Nine, working with artists like Juice WRLD nowadays. Like, there's so many things that Eminem has always proved that he is able to fit in the game. So my favorite thing is, like, if you talk about the Eminem show specifically, right around that exact same time, he had produced Devil's Night by D12. So he's showing his production skill as well as his rap skill. And then the year after that, he's putting together Get Rich or Die Tryin' for 50 Cent. And In the Club becomes one of the biggest songs of all time, and that's an Eminem beat. Like, it's a huge thing that Eminem just really stamped or put his staple on the history of music. And the Eminem show, in a general, is like one of the coolest and craziest albums. I could say the same for Marshall Mathers LP because they both have that same type of tone where it's like every song is a different vibe. But the Eminem show is just so cool, and it always has been my favorite until I started comparing it to the Marshall Mathers LP, and I was just like, but there are some songs that are so amazing that you cannot overlook. Marshall Mathers LP, specifically, in my opinion, has the finisher for the Slim Shady sound. Like, I know it's continued. It has it on Eminem show, and it has it on Encore, but there's the Slim Shady at the end of Criminal that you just cannot reach with the other two albums. The things that he's saying, the acting out, the ridiculous and horrific violent behavior that Slim Shady has, like all of that's there. Goes right into Devil's Night the following year. That's where like you got all your Slim Shady, you're all good. Eminem show starts taking things seriously. Besides Stan, Eminem didn't really have too many serious songs, and Brain Damage. He was focused on talking to his fans directly. One of my favorite songs of all time, the sample from Aerosmith's Dream On, is Sing for the Moment. And that's right. The way that he talks to his fans, especially by the third verse, he makes it very clear that he's not in it for this whole shooting guns is cool and acting ghetto is cool. He's doing it because he's a rapper and he's in that position, and that's all that he's doing it for. But he doesn't want you to go and make the same mistakes and live that lifestyle. And it's like, it's just so interesting for somebody to be so contradictory of their character that they were on the previous album, but it's just showing that maturity that he really needed to have. And he proved himself at that time to get 50 Cent on to Shady and Aftermath, and anything Dre was working on. Interscope was just like all about it. And that was the first time, as far as I know, that a white rapper was able to make it to that level of fame. Like Marshall Mathers LP is the biggest selling rap album of all time, beating Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style. Like that was the biggest thing. It was a huge record-breaking album, unbelievable.
Back in the late 90s, I think late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there, Eminem was part of that tour, the Up and Smoke tour. And that one had...
Got it right here.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And man, like what a lineup for that one, right? Like it's an all-star cast. But I remember like back in when I first heard Eminem, this is gonna date me a lot here, but when I first heard Eminem back in high school, at first when I heard My Name is Slim Shady, I thought he was just gonna be like a comedy rapper, you know what I mean? And I thought he was just gonna stay that way. But then when I saw the music video for Stan and heard all the other tracks that were not comedic, I was like, wow, like this guy can really write tunes.
Yeah, his writing ability can, as he says, and this is one of the most important songs on the Eminem show, if we go back to that album, my words can take you by surprise, make you cry and dry your eyes at the same time, because what you're seeing is a genius at work, which to me isn't something to interpret it at first, but it's like he has this way of speaking with his rhyming where it's not just poetry, it's his overall character, whether he wants to play the crazy guy or whether he wants to play serious Marshall Mathers III, the actual person. He will always figure out a way to make it work. And one of my favorite things about Eminem is that his beats include piano. He loves piano. He loves harpsichord. He puts so many different types of sounds that you don't hear in other rappers' music, which is really cool.
Yeah. And speaking of piano, Dr. Dre has a background playing piano.
So true. And did you see Straight Outta Compton, the movie?
I sure did, yep.
So when I saw that movie, it really opened my eyes to how Dre had to do what he did to mix together the NWA like vinyls, and like all the samples that he was using were literally from vinyls that were already out. Like they didn't make a new sound. There wasn't like a new, keyboard that you could just hit the preset on that wasn't a thing yet. And so it blew my mind watching that. I was like, how did he do this? And like you said, he has a history in piano. It's used all over, especially California Love. There's a little bit of keyboard and synthesizer work that's a lot more known for the Chronic album and Doggy Style. He did a lot of production, but it's also including, my favorite instrument, the piano. And you are a pianist and a overall amazing musician, Eddie. So you have more to say about this. What is Dre doing that I missed out on? Please tell me.
Seeing like what he could do even at such a young age, being able to DJ, do some keys and I don't know, like you can tell overall he has a really great ear. He's got a fantastic ear. He's a great MC. He can spit rhymes for sure. He can write some amazing lyrics, but on a producer side of things, on a DJing side of things, man, the guy knew what he was doing. He really knew what he was doing.
Yes, he's truly untouchable. Like, he has an unmatched potential, especially for that time. Because, I mean, you can love Dre, you can love Snoop, you can love Tupac, you can love Eminem, you can love 50, you can love The Game. All of that has to do with what Dre is naturally able to do. He's naturally able to hear one song, and during the disc spinning scene in Straight Outta Compton, they make it very clear you can only hear certain parts of the song, and then you're scratching, and then you're making it a different part, and you're making sure those two beats line up together to make something that's listenable. And he did it, and he mastered it. And Suge Knight saw that, unfortunately not in the best way, and then pushed his sound to be the only sound of the West Coast. Like, it was so tremendous. And he deserves all the accolades that he has received over this time, and having beats and everything that is under his belt. I mean, very happy for him, but at the same time, he's just a natural. Like, he is so incredible. Like, this probably isn't even hard. This probably wasn't even a challenge. The business part was probably more of a challenge than the actual music making.
And that's the thing. But after looking back at his history, all those names we've mentioned, right? Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, and the list goes on and on. They are final bosses already. They're in final boss mode for quite a long time. Anyone who's at that level in the industry, like that's why I consider them. I just say final boss because they've reached that.
It's so true, man. And to not discount the other rapper that came out in the late 90s and also killed the scene and made up the West Coast into let's go Midwest with it. Tech Nine, one of the most impressive lyricists of all time, producing his own beats, creating his own label, becoming the #1 independent artist in hip-hop music. Absolutely insane how much talent that dude has as well. I really wish that he worked with Dre and Eminem more often. There's one song, I think he said he wanted Eminem, but it was like poor timing. He has a song with Slaughterhouse and D12 and him on it. I'm like, dude,
right?
Like, that's where Eminem should have been. He should have been on this. It's so good too. Really, really good track.
And this is great, because the fact that we can talk about these hip hop artists that we grew up listening to who played such a big role, and of course, as you described, and I know this is an audio podcast, but for those who don't know, again, to remind you again, folks, Dan has a poster of Eminem behind him in his video space here that you can't see, but it's a really cool picture of him. But not only that, like, because you got a collection of other cool things on here too. Like, I've mentioned the movie collection, the CD collection. But when we talk about media, I know that with you are a huge Ryan Reynolds fan, specifically with him as Deadpool, and the connection is that he's from right here in my hometown, which is Vancouver, Canada, where they filmed Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2, mind you. And he is Deadpool is one of your favorite superheroes.
It's so true. He really is. And there's Deadpool 1 and 2 for you, because I know that you like visual representation, even though people can't see it. But I always hold those with pride. I have to show you something really, really cool, Eddie. You're going to love
Yeah,
this. This is
for
my
sure,
first
show it to
time
me.
opening this. So I have Deadpool and Wolverine,
Oh my goodness.
but I have a super special Walmart exclusive that
Really?
Allison's brother was nice enough to show me. And so I actually bought myself one and my friend one. This is the opening for this Blu-ray.
Oh my goodness. And for those of you who may not have this special edition collection yet, if you have the chance to go to Walmart and if it's still there, get it. There's a really nice uh, um, art display that you gotta check out if you end up buying this on. You said it's on Blu-ray.
Yeah, this is only on Blu-ray. They didn't have it on the 4K. This is a
Okay, got it.
pop-up, like an old school book. Remember pop-up books, dude?
Of
Like, I
course.
couldn't believe that they had this. I was so happy. And so, yeah, it's Wolverine in the middle. All of Deadpool's many characters from his multiple universes that are shown in the movie are in this
Nice.
shot. And it is just an epic way to know that you're in for a really fun time. And yeah, I could talk about Deadpool. I'll make it really simple. In 2013, my friend and I had pretty much all interest in what was so shocking it was funny. So if
Yeah.
it was Hitman, it was like, shooting a random pedestrian for no reason and then running away from the crime scene in the middle of the suburban area. If it was GTA, it was putting on classical music and running people over for no apparent reason. And for Halo, we were just, teabagging everybody. But when
Oh
it
my
came to
goodness.
Deadpool,
Oh my goodness.
the video game came out in, I don't know, 2013, 2014. I
Yeah.
didn't get it, I think, until 2015. And the following year, Deadpool movie came out.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
amazed. Like, to say the least, like the first part of that game, just the little details, just the humor was 100% reeling me in to be like, I think I'm a fan of this character. Like, he is so
Yeah.
absolutely insane and so self-aware, and the jokes and the cleverness just never ended. I haven't finished the game personally. I really want to, but I have not
Right.
finished it yet.
Right.
And it was so fun that I was telling myself, like, I have to see what this movie's like. And so I went out of my way to make sure I saw that movie 8 times in theaters.
Wow.
I saw it the first night and was so impressed that I had to see it
Yeah.
again. And then again.
That's amazing.
And then again. And then there was one night where I was like, ah, man, I got a little bit of free time. What should I do? I'm going to go see it again. And so it just started becoming an addiction of this character played by Ryan Reynolds, as you said, from Vancouver. And I really loved the overall, not raunchiness, because I don't really like raunchy. That's not my type of humor. But it was just this tongue-in-cheek,
okay.
very self-aware, very call-out, and just ridiculous. I can't swear, so I'm just saying, like, screwed up, really screwed up stuff, and making it so lighthearted
Yeah.
and funny with one of the best soundtracks. Like, we were just talking about Baby Driver and all these other movies that have incredible soundtracks.
That's right. Yeah.
You got Angel of the Morning by Juice Newton. You got, Shoop by, what is it?
Salt and
TLC,
pepper.
or who's
Salt and pepper.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I was amazed that all these songs could fit. You got X Gon' Give It to You. What?
Yep. Yeah.
Like,
you got
all these
DMX on
things
there.
from
Yeah.
all different generations, and it just showed that rated R could be something that could work with a comic book character like Deadpool. And they pulled it off so much so it was one of the highest grossing films. It's one of my favorite movies. I've watched
Yeah.
it over
Yeah.
100 times, I think. It's just funny. It's really, I can name every single scene and I can almost get the whole line delivery down. And it was just the way that he would
Yeah.
deliver as the character that I would get that cadence down and I would be like, oh, well, I think that is a genius idea. Thanks for asking me. I am Deadpool. Like, it's just like this really sassy, sarcastic,
Yeah.
and he's just so good as this character. But Ryan Reynolds overall, I didn't know until I saw Deadpool that he was in The Proposal. Fun fact.
Really?
Yeah, I did not know who Ryan Reynolds was. I only knew Sandra Bullock because my mom and my dad grew up watching all these movies and they always said, oh,
Of
that's Miss
course.
Congeniality. So I was like, that's Sandra Bullock. Okay. And so I didn't know who Ryan Reynolds was. So going back and watching like Green Lantern and The Proposal, I was like, he always had this humor and I didn't notice it at all. This is insane. I should have known. I
Uh,
should have known that I missed out on this guy. And so yeah, as a comedian, he's probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite in the Hollywood space.
and, and see, at the same time, like, going back to Deadpool, with it being such a funny movie, but they still had their serious moments in that, in both films, both part one and two.
So true. So true. One of my favorite things that I point out when people are saying, oh, this is a throwaway, all jokes all the time. I'm like, listen, Ryan Reynolds pulled off one of the hardest torture scenes I've had to see in comic books. Like he was literally
Yeah.
to the brink of death if he didn't breathe in oxygen. And they just put him on the cusp of that. Like here's the exact moment where you feel like you're choking, like you literally have nothing left, and that's what we're going to keep you in this box for. And the fact that he's going through all this and it's this super intense torture scene and he
Yeah.
still comes out and makes a joke about the thing in his teeth, like that's Deadpool. That is Deadpool. That was a perfect way of doing it. And like you
That's a
said, it is a
definition of.
really serious scene. Yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Great
And we
tonal
won't.
shift.
Yeah, and of course, we won't give too much of that movie away because, if you haven't seen it yet, we encourage you to see it. If you love action, if you love comedy, if you love just like, good storytelling too, by the way, too. Yeah, if you want that,
Yeah.
then I suggest Deadpool 1 and then Deadpool 2. And I haven't seen this yet, but I will be. Yeah, Wolverine or Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, that will still be on my to-watch list.
Oh yes, it is. It is quite a movie. It is interesting to see how many little bits of nostalgia they were able to sprinkle on each scene, and then overload you with some of it at times where you're like, "Wait a second! I thought we did all of the nostalgia. How in the world is this in my face? This is incredible!"
Right.
It was
And
so good, man. At
yeah.
times, I'm
And
critical.
speaking of nostalgia, let's talk about First to 11 because I remember watching a really cool, talented band online on YouTube doing all these throwback tunes. Like they have a wide variety of songs that they've covered. And you know how like when you always hire these cool, amazing party bands who will do a wide variety of hits. First to 11 remind me of that, except they took it to another level where it's like a rock version, somewhat, a rock version of your favorite hits. Because I remember when I saw First 11's version of Genie in a Bottle by Christina Aguilera. I'm like,
Oh,
did they
so
just,
good. Cole
yeah,
Roland.
like
Yes.
did they just do a rock version of Genie in a Bottle of all songs? Uh, but they pulled it off so well. Like I listened to that version way more than Christina's version.
Yes, I agree, dude. I actually love both. Obviously, I'm a big fan of giving the props to the one that created it first. Our First to
Yeah,
11's cover featuring Cole Roland on the harmonics. Oh my God. Dude,
yeah.
I have heard his pinch harmonics every time I listen to the actual song. They're in my head. I'm always like, there's Cole's part. Put Cole's part in this song, and this is so much better. Like, it's so good how they both complement each other. Matt's guitar line, Cole's guitar line, back and forth at the same time. Excellent harmonics. Audra's voice on that song, especially in their prime, which was like 2020 to 2022, like they were just on top of the world, dude. Like they were growing so much. Their fans were loving them. I was a big fan and I still do enjoy them, but I'm not like the
Yeah.
biggest fan like I used to be. I got
Right.
into a lot more original music than I got covers, but I still check them out. I'm still not like, oh, I won't listen to them. They're under me now. Not gonna
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I will say, like, I really enjoyed them during that time. 2019 was when I first discovered them,
That's
and
right.
they covered Poker Face by Lady Gaga. And
Yeah. That's
fun
right.
fact for anybody that doesn't know, Poker Face has really, really explicit lyrics if you actually look up the real lyrics. So all the time that we've been listening to it and we're like, "Oh, she's saying poker, right?" She's not saying poker. Just so you
No.
know, if you guys want to hear how it's actually sounding, you're going to be like, "Oh, I think she's saying a different word." Go and check out the lyrics. It is amazing that we played it on the radio.
From
Like
from
amazing.
from the actual from the actual album version, basically.
Yes, yes. You
Yeah.
understand where I'm going with this?
It,
They
it,
say
it,
F
it-
F her face.
yeah. And
That's literally the
oh my
words.
goodness.
It's like insane. Insane, man. I can't believe we had that on radio.
And and then it goes back to when we discussed about Eminem. You know how they have D12, they have that hit Purple Hills, but if you listen to the
Yes.
actual album, it's something else. And I won't say it on here, but you'll see.
Gotcha.
You'll just need to research it yourselves, guys. But yeah, you'll see what we mean.
Yeah, and you can also check out Eminem's The Pizza Mix of My Fault. It's actually hilarious. It's only available on the Real Slim Shady single. I have it right here next to me. Um,
Oh, there you go.
I'm insane. What can I say, man? I have too much, too much. But the pizza mix is really funny because it takes an extremely serious thing that also has to do with hills. We'll go with that. And it has to do with
Yeah.
pizza toppings being something that the character is allergic to. That Eminem wrote this for the kids listening to his album to be like, oh,
That's
they're
right.
talking about pizza. And it's so funny, dude. Like the
That's
same lines that
hilarious.
do exist, but then the other song lines that do not. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Either way, back to what I was trying to say about Lady Gaga. Um, their cover of Poker Face first interested me, but what really hooked me into their sound was their cover of Katy Perry E.T.
Right.
And
Yes.
oh my gosh, like their production at that time was very minimal compared to how it is nowadays. Their
Yeah.
videos even were very minimal production.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
something about them caught my ear. I was working at a different hotel and I heard this and I was like, this might be the greatest cover band I've ever heard. And I didn't like cover bands
Yeah.
at that time. I was very
Yeah.
critical. I was like, they're not real. They're not cool. But their production, Nick Scott, I should say, he's an incredible producer. Nick Scott has put together tons of rock, metal, all kinds of stuff straight out of, I believe, Michigan. I think he's from there. This guy knows what he's doing
Yeah.
in the studio to make it sound as clear and crisp as possible, and it actually allows the rock to sound rocky. That's what I love
It's
about
great.
First 211
Yeah.
sound, is that you can get a heavy riff with that nice, cool pop vocal that Audra does to still match what the original
That's
had.
right.
And it works so well together.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful
Very
that I
true.
was able to to connect with not only the band themselves, but the fan base and be part of them and be known that I could talk with one of the biggest creators in the YouTube space in the pandemic years. It was crazy how much they were pushing out, and it really influenced my overall drive to keep doing what I was doing. Honestly, they were a big inspiration of like, well, if they're grinding, I can grind. Let's do it. Let's grind together, honestly.
Exactly. And the one that impressed me the most was their version of "Carry On My Wayward Son" by Boston. Or sorry, not Boston, Kansas. Sorry to get those bands mixed up. But
No,
yeah,
it's okay.
their version, but their version of "Carry On My Wayward Son" was just phenomenal. It was so spot on. I'm like, because I remember my cover band. We've covered that song live last summer actually, and we had a really great time. I think we nailed it. But with these guys, like they're not just performing it live. Like they had to record this, and that I can only imagine must have been so time consuming.
Oh yeah. With all of the extra vocals that Audra does behind her main vocal, it is extremely time consuming, and I do give her props. Once again, I'm not the biggest fan of them these days because I'm very critical, and I've fallen in love with metalcore. I cannot stop. I'm obsessed with metalcore.
Yeah, fair
But
enough.
I will say that like First to 11, they do something special, and when they do something right, it's amazing. I don't know if you have checked out their newest cover of Don't Stop Believin', but they did really, really well on that.
I have
And
not. I
then they
should check
did
it
another
out. Yeah.
cover most recently. Yeah. And oh, Don't Stop Me Now. That's what I meant. Don't Stop Me Now by
Oh,
Queen.
Queen. Oh,
An
okay. Queen, don't
incredible
stop me.
video. And yes, the vocals, the guitar, the instruments, the production of it, perfect. Literally perfect. One of their best covers, no question. However, my first favorite was obviously E.T., but I also loved their cover of Over the Rainbow, originally by Judy Garland from The Wizard of
Wizard of
Oz
Oz.
in
Yeah.
way long ago time. And they made a pop punk cover with a post-hardcore breakdown in the middle. It's such a cool mix. And the
it
vocals on it were so different.
It's funny you mentioned that because the first band that most of us knew that covered that originally was Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, which was like a long, 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 long time ago, and like they have their own pop up version of
I don't
Summer.
know who that is.
Okay, so check that out.
I have to hear
Yeah,
this.
so for those who don't know, if you're either too young or too old to remember these folks, but there was a band called Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, and they covered a pop punk version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. But I bet you anything, First 11 must have gotten the idea from that. Just gonna
That
make some
makes
assumption
sense.
right there.
That makes sense because they probably had to find something that they could focus their structure on. Because I know that they've always created some structures, like Sam and Matt both had these really creative ideas with their structures, and of course Ryan, who created the band. But like Sam always had this way of taking a pop song and making it as interesting as possible. Their cover of Someone That I Used to Know by Gautier has such an interesting style to it, and it just builds so much more than the original did, and I loved the original. So I was so happy to hear that not only did they give tribute to the original but also changed it up and made it their own. And I feel like there's some covers, especially now that I'm a critic of their stuff, there's some covers that are just copy paste, and it's just like, oh, this is the same song with Audra on vocals. That's all that I hear.
And and speaking of critics, with you being a YouTuber now, and for quite some time, I know that you love watching other people's content as well, like with other YouTubers in general, like besides musicians like First 11, but then you follow like other like critics, commentators, podcasters of every kind. Like for you as a creator yourself, I'm so glad you've been influenced by all these people who inspired you to do what you do now, right? And it's so cool to see you do that. And like I said, your followers have increased over the years too, and the views have increased over the years from all the different reaction videos you've done, the commentaries you've also published. But this is something I've been meaning to ask you though, like. Well, I guess the first one I want to ask is like, what do you think makes a great YouTuber? What drew you to liking certain content creators in the first place?
Oh, I've definitely talked about Chris Stuckman many times before, but I will also give a shout out to the major man that got me into music criticism, which was PJ Mills. And now he is the guitarist and vocalist of Crushing Plains, who actually just got back together this year. I'm so happy to see them back together. They were on my podcast as my first actual guest, second episode that I posted for the interview series.
Yeah.
But yeah, PJ had this way of talking about a band's music and a song that would just like break it down simply and still be as useful as possible. It's not like something where it's picking it apart and using these humongous words like Fantano does. It was like this just expression that he had behind it. And I felt the
Hmm.
same way when I was watching Chris Stuckman's videos. An
Right.
expression is extremely important for you to make it on YouTube. You need to
Indeed.
express that you love what you're talking about, even if you're not being honest, like Finn McKenty, once again throwing him under the bus there.
Oh my
But you need to
goodness.
be as expressive as possible for your fans to understand this is your passion, this is why you're here, this is what you personally know. Because if you don't speak with full confidence, the only way that they're going to focus on you is if you have a great thumbnail or a girl or you play in a band that they have already been well known for a while and you just started your YouTube career and people already know who you are. But if you wanted to make it right now, if you want to start up a YouTube channel with whatever you're focused on, if you don't show your passion, if you don't commit to your own characters, you can be exactly who you are. You can be an absolutely insane critic. You can be the harshest critic. You can be the nicest critic. You can focus on positivity. You can focus on negativity. Whatever it is, if you don't put your all in, if you don't see the camera and say, I'm going to stare at that the whole time, you might have a big issue growing because we have to get used to looking at
Yes.
the little speck that is that circle. To see ourselves is not a thing anymore. You have to look at that little speck and be like, this is my world now. I have to see that and I have to speak directly to it as if it's a person that has always wanted to hear what I have had to say.
So, how do you deal with critics who are just unnecessarily harsh on you, like the negative comments, or just like how there's like two kinds of there's two kinds of things that you'll come across that right? Like you'll come across either constructive feedback, which is which can be very helpful that you can learn from, right? But then
Yeah.
there's also people who are just being plain trolls, just being plain bullies, just for no reason because they just like to be jerks online. Like how do you deal with that?
Well, overall, I should say that I've been blessed. When I started my reactions, even though I was touching on artists that were usually highly criticized, a lot of people came to my content and left a lot of positive remarks and a lot of recommendations to check out more content. And that's what I did for them.
Yeah.
The few that did end up saying like I was fake or anything like that, usually would get
Yeah.
pinned, and then I would let all my fans attack them. So here you are being a
Oh my
dummy,
goodness.
and now I put you at the top of the list so that everyone can see your comment first, and then I heart and I like your comment, and then I say thanks for the advice, and then I let my fans go after you, or my friends in this case, because I would always send it to the group chat, and you guys would be like, I got him. I was like, come on,
Oh my
he's being
goodness.
unreasonable. There's real constructive criticism that I truly respect. And if any of you guys say, oh my gosh, Dan, your old content was terrible, I agree. I put it together. I
Yeah.
edited it, and I was not a good
Yeah.
editor, and I'm still not a perfect editor. I have so much more to learn, but I don't focus on the editing as much as I focus on creating. So it's very hard for me to do all of it while having a full-time job.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
people that you're watching on, YouTube, TV, whatever it is, that is their job. My job is not on these platforms. So this is my fun time. The last thing I want to do is feel like I'm doing extra work. So I always put as little effort in, but I always try to focus on one little thing that I'm like, oh, that would be funny, or oh, that's interesting, or oh, I like how I said that. And I'll just cut out these little moments. So if you don't like watching me bob my
Right.
head,
Right.
I don't blame you, but I hope that you enjoyed the music. That's all I can say.
Yeah, exactly. And you're getting people out there, which is great. And this is the thing too, because you and I we've dealt with a great deal of unnecessary harsh criticism, and where that obviously everyone here knew what happened back in November of 2024. We won't get too much into that, but I think what you and I have learned when we went through dealing with such jerk of a behavior like that, it's just like, well, you know what, man. It's like how dare you do something like that, just to slander other people on the internet. And that's the thing too, like when you aim for that, it's like all you're doing is just shooting yourself in the foot, right? Because like if all you're doing is just slandering people on the internet and not providing any kind of actual important value with a good loving intention, then all you're doing is you expose yourself to being like, oh, look how foolish I am.
Yeah. And if you suck at it, then you get me calling you out. That's what happens. You don't screw around.
Yeah.
And it's the game that we've all learned in the past couple of years. Don't F around if you don't want to find out. Just don't do it. You don't have to F around. So just don't F around and then you won't find out. But if you want to find out, feel free to F around.
Yeah.
That's exactly the message that I made clear to Bronson Rasmoran. Oh man, I will always say this. I'm proud of the fact that I could say something. I still hate that I could not get the audio fixed on that. I really wish that I could fix it just so he could feel extra bad. Because I'm pretty sure people clicked off in 5 minutes or so of that video.
And like I said, man, like I appreciate you advocating not just for folks like myself. You're advocating for independent artists who are working their buns off every day, in every way possible, right? Not just the traditional live band, but it can be a YouTuber who's just trying to showcase what they could do in terms of production or playing guitar, playing an instrument of their choice, or it could be, and I've seen you advocate even just for other music commentators who do such a great job. Being a good music critic or a good music reviewer, or reactor, whatever it may be. And you advocate for these people because, with you, like you've mentioned, what drew you as a fan of a content creator, right? And, but, once you become a fan, you also become an advocate for them as well. And so this is why I'm just going to say it straight up. Like, dude, thank you again for having our backs.
I will go to the end of my life to make sure that you guys are protected at all costs when you put your whole heart and soul into what you create. That is the way that it goes. If you wanted to do a project where you don't care and it's just for fun and somebody's critical of it, I'm going to be like, hey, you know what you were doing. Like, I know that like some of Jay's work, J2, I should say, he's not too fond of his own stuff and he knows that he was rushing it, and that happens. And, I can be critical. Anyone can be critical. But when I know that you've put together this career and that this isn't just a joke and that this is your actual story that you're telling in your songs, and someone takes it completely out of context and reaches out to talk with you and creates this space that makes you feel like you are the top of the food chain, like that's how I try to make all my guests feel. Like, I praise them because they deserve it. And the fact that he did that and then does this video slandering you, slandering your business strategy, slandering the artist involved, like, what are you doing, man? Like, what is your overall intent? Is your intent to look as dumb as possible? Because congratulations, you did it. If your intent was to actually prove that you know more about music, you made yourself think you did. I mean, I still have that little GIF that I sent you where he goes, I still have that saved. And even though that video's gone, I keep that with me.
Yeah. And this is the thing too, because again, I'm trying not to talk too much into that.
Yeah,
whole,
we're okay.
The whole incident. But I'll say it straight up. The thing that made me laugh about that, I'm just like, bro, why are you not just not only are you just criticizing, but then remember how he got so angry because the song was one of our songs was over 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, remember how he was just like, I'm like, why are you angry, bro? You know what I mean? Like, you treat it like it's something. I don't know, like punched a family member or something like that of yours. You know what I mean? Like,
So
I just like
true.
what like I'm like, did someone hurt you, bro? Like, seriously, but at the same time, I'm just like, because it was that, unfortunately, this is the thing that you'll see, just to let people know too. You may have some people out there who have this almost like very out of touch thinking, because you know how the whole thing is like, oh, it's gotta be under a certain time for radio play. I'm like, dude, no one is trying to aim for Virgin, like Virgin Radio, iHeartRadio, or Virgin Radio, or whatever it may be, because like, a lot of us release stuff independently on Spotify, on iTunes, whatever it may be, because that's the beauty of releasing stuff on the internet, is that there are we don't have to follow those rules that the mainstream folks were making us do.
So incredibly true, man. And here's the thing about it. The fact that he was so upset about the 4 minute runtime, and I called him out on it. You guys can check it out. It's on Rumble. It's a very harsh one. It's not going to be the cleanest vocals from me. I was very mean, but I made it justified because I made it in the beginning as clear as possible that I would never throw
Yeah.
my friend under a bus. I would never, ever, ever in my right mind say, this is going to be how I start my day or start my video. I'm going to roast somebody that I've known for many, many years. Like, that is a dumb decision. And especially, there's no inside joke to it. There's no like, oh yeah, you and Eddie always going at it. It's never been like that. And the fact that he genuinely wanted to interview you, it's so upsetting. But either way, so my big thing is that you were just saying, I missed a part of it. You were saying he went out of his way to talk about the 4 minute runtime, or more than 4 minute runtime. And I was saying it during the actual, response video. It's like Bohemian Rhapsody. They literally talked about how that changed everything in the movie as well as reality. That changed how we listened to music. Like, nobody wanted to hear a long song until that song really took them through a journey. So let's talk about like
That's right.
songs like, I don't know, Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin'. It's a freaking amazing Journey song. See, I connected Journey there. Let's talk about Dream Theater and their theatrical masterpieces that they've been putting together for so long and are completely underrated and unbelievably talented. And Toto with their jam band. Like, there's so many things that have had more than 4 minutes that are not too shocking that people like. They want to hear it. They like it. And they like hearing the same chorus. And he was just so harsh on just one song. And it was like, dude, you're so unfocused. And it still wasn't even your most recent release. And that was what really ticked me off the most. It's like, if you're not going to focus on the most recent, what are you focused on? You're not even caring about the real band. Just like the one song that had Kellen. Yeah. Woohoo.
And this is the thing. Because fast forward after a few other songs that have been released over the pandemic era, then 2023, my band Crime Sons have a song called TBA, To Be Accountable, and I'm sure if this guy had done his research, he should know that song was under 4 minutes.
Yeah,
he could have said, "Wow." Under 3 minutes, and I think it's 3 minutes and 45 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was under 4 minutes. I didn't do it on purpose, but it just happened to be under 4 minutes.
Yeah, and it's really a good song. Overall, your music is great, and I have to give you and the band props for being the number one sound you hear when you open up the MediaManDan podcast. Like, exactly. I can't tell you how much I love Definition Part 2, man. It's amazing.
Thank you. No, and dude, thank you so much for using my band's song, the instrumental Definition Part 2, as your opening for all your MediaManDan videos. You know, it's such an honor to know that our music's getting played on your videos each time. And again, but this circles back to what you're all about. You advocate for these content creators, musical artists of every kind, and just to make sure they get their music or get their material out there. And I feel like, I always encourage people who consume a lot of content of independent content creators and musicians is don't just be their fan, be their advocate as well, be their spokesperson of some kind, to play that huge role. Because I feel like, if you want to create a good market for these people that you support, you can play a role, and just like how you play a role too, Dan, right?
Yeah,
Like to get yourself out there.
absolutely, man. And this is the thing that I love about what I do. I've always said I am so harsh on myself, and you guys would never know because behind the scenes stuff is completely different from what you see on camera. That's how almost all of us
That's right.
are as creators. But when I'm editing my
Yes,
stuff,
exactly.
I have to nitpick. I have to take all those little things that I see incorrect and correct them. And there's so many things that nobody would really care about that I take out because I just know for me it doesn't work. And that's why I've always decided from the time that I started the podcast especially, I'm not the star. There's no reason to be the main act. The main act is the guest. The main reason I do it is because I want to promote whatever they've put out. And I listen to all of their music or watch all of their content or consume anything that they've done. I have somebody who wrote a book. I'm going to have to read a book so that I can interview them. I have a guy who's coming on who's a tremendous artist, has been called in from the president of China in the 80s to help create a toy line that created what we know as modern toys. It is insane how many people have a chance to speak on my podcast, and all I say is, what can I do to be better? Like, that's all I care about. It's like, what can I do to promote you? Like, that's all I care about. Like, other people, they're out there like, look at me, I do this. I will have moments where I'm talking about myself because I'm proud. I do have great, vocal skill, and I'm very happy that some people go to me for advice, like Jay and other people that need a recommendation of someone to listen to or someone to practice with or get a sound that they usually can't make. I'm like happy to help, but at the same time, I'm not like I'm the master. I'm professional. That's Eddie over here. That's anyone that I've interviewed. Go and check out those people that have actually put out content that has that kind of skill behind it. My skill is promotion.
Right.
My gift is conversation, and my passion is putting it together so you can see it or hear it or consume it just like I did. And the way that you guys want to do it is all on your own accord. I love every single one of you, even if it's just one person or 1,000 people. I love you so much because you took time out of your day to say this guy's point of view
Amen.
is important, and that I can do something in any way to change someone's opinion or persuade them to listen to something that they're not usually into. That makes me feel so much more amazing than talking about myself or claiming that I know everything or being a critic. I like being a critic of movies because nobody gets hurt in that. But when it comes to music, I'm always like, I didn't create anything. What am I going to do with that? I can't tell a musician what to do or not to do. So I just throw it out there like, here's a breadcrumb of marketing idea. But it's just, I love it, man. This has been one of my
But
favorite things and my best era of content creation.
well, and that's the thing, I couldn't agree more because and this is what this is how we build ourselves. It's through support, basically, right? And speaking of which, too, not only is it now, not only have you been promoting my stuff, but there's two other people from Vancouver, from my hometown, from my circle of friends, who you've actually interviewed as well. Of course, the one for sure was interviewing Yefania. who, of course, I've been working on music with her too, right, for the last few years, and it's been such a pleasure working with her since 2022, and to see the growth happen with her finally releasing songs online and all that good stuff too. You've interviewed her now. Was it on 3 occasions now? Is it 3 occasions?
Yes,
Two
yes,
occasions? 3
three
occasions? Yeah.
separate. We talked about each song technically, but the second time I had to talk about Front Row and I had to talk about The Right Guy because I was not able to talk to her before that. I think we had the scheduling conflict when I was getting my job. So it was
That's right.
like
Yeah.
I had to catch up on both of those songs and figure out how both of them fit. And then I lost the video. So it was all
Yeah.
audio. I was like, no, because I never hit record.
Oh, yeah, I know. It happens. So,
Yeah, it
yeah,
happened.
and I'm so glad you got. I'm so glad you got a chance to get that, to talk to Yafan, talk about her musical journey and what she's been doing so far and that kind of stuff, right? And then you also interviewed my friend Sayana, who I've done a show with her before too, a couple years back for Halloween, with talking about her group Marlo Come Home, and it's so fascinating, like the fact that the people you've interviewed, you've had a wide variety of people from different backgrounds, different, probably even different languages, right? Or, different musical tastes. And it, and this is the thing with you is that, like I said, the viewership has grown over the years since I first came to your channel. And it's just that, you are listening and reacting to all these different bands and artists. And it feels like, like what I really enjoyed about what you've been doing is that you're willing to give everything a shot. You're willing to take a chance on uh, the 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 content you consume as part of your channel, just to get it out there. And and I just love that fact that you can do that. That you're willing to do that. Some people are a little bit too reserved on what they want to review or who they want to interview. But with you, you are willing to take these chances because you have a very open mind that way, which is great.
Yeah, I needed it when I was doing reactions, especially because had I known how many different sounds I was going to encounter from the beginning, I would have probably been a little bit more overwhelmed. Like, wait, are you sure it's gonna be power metal? I'm starting with this pop group called Little Mix. I don't even know what this is. Like, okay, melodic
Right?
rap,
Yeah.
like mumble rap. Are you serious? Me? Oh, yeah, sure, right? And like, I'm like thinking as a metalhead, I'm like, there's no way I'm ever gonna listen to any of these songs or have Allison join me for a country reaction. Like, none of that came to mind as like an actual reality. And the
Right.
fact that I've done it and the fact that I've promoted it in the reaction game whenever I have a chance to do it on the podcast, I'm like, let's do this. Let's go all in. I heard the worst songs from every single one of my artists from their beginning of their career that they hated with all their might more than 3 times
Yeah.
before I interview them because I take the time to listen to hear their progression and to see that overall like evolution as an artist. What were they and how are they now? And I get blown away by new sound. And I absolutely love that I can be proven wrong. There are some artists where I'm
That's
going
right.
in with this pre-assumption, like Breaking Serenity, literally on my hat, one of the greatest bands I've interviewed. Their first couple of songs that were out when I first interviewed them, they didn't even have anything re-recorded or remastered yet. So they had these like
Yeah, that's
YouTube
right.
like flangey types of songs. And when I was trying to promote it, I was just like, but, like, why was it, like, so poorly recorded? He's like, "Yeah, that one was an accident. We actually were and ended up sending that to YouTube too quickly, and then as soon as it was up, we couldn't take it down, so we just uploaded that audio onto
Yeah.
another." I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." So here I am in my pre-mind like, "Oh, I'm gonna be, harsh as a critic, but also praising them." And what did they do? They blew me away with an album that had over 25 collaborations of artists that they've met in their
Wow.
career, and I reacted to every
Nice.
single song in pure genuine joy. I was like, "This I was so wrong. These guys are amazing. I'm so happy they were on the podcast." And now because of them, I've met everybody in the SoCal area who has promoted me both on the show, on their social media, and some even in
Right on.
person at festivals. Like, this is huge, dude. This is something I couldn't have dreamed of with my reactions. Like, nobody's gonna go and talk about another YouTuber, but when you talk about somebody who's promoting and saying like, "This guy actually cares. This guy actually cares. Go check him out." That means so much to me, and so thank you, Scarlet Siren, for giving me a shout out at your show. Absolutely insane. I still have that video saved, and I've met a big
That's
fan, one of my
right.
number one
Yes.
fans through them. Alex, thank you. Of course, Jason Vilches, my number one fan. He's been supporting me ever since we first chatted. It's insane, dude. I love it. I love what I do.
That's just amazing, and the fact that that happened at the concert, giving you a shout out, that's just brilliant. And now, a bunch of people in that audience have heard your name, so there you
Yeah.
go, folks.
Oh, and Breaking Serenity let me do the promo for the actual festival that day too. I told Nico, I was like, I have it
Yeah,
ready
yeah.
if you can let me have the rights. He's like, yeah, man, just tag us in
Please,
and
please go for it. Go for it.
put it out. It's like it's insane. I can't believe it. So I'm so grateful for all of these opportunities.
And you know what's really really fun about that too is that when it comes to going to live shows, again, like say giving you a shout out, for example, that is a prime example of what makes a good live show is the audience connection, right? Like you connect with the people, and it could be you could have all these great songs, but if there's no connection to the people who are watching you play, then what's the point, right? And and I feel like with the audience connection, of course results vary from different artists, of course, right? So that it really depends who it is, but for most of it, at least for me, if there's an audience connection where the artists are engaging, they're making some they're making us laugh, they're making us feel a song that they've written, um connection is the key to everything, I think, that and that's what makes a show very unforgettable. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God, yes. I'm so glad you said connection is the key because that's what I've been telling so many people. Connection is the key to success. Connection, collaboration, commitment, all three C's are extremely important to proceed in what you are actually doing. People say, Dan, how do you not burn out with putting out 26 videos in a day? And it's like, listen, I don't think about them as 26 videos in a day. I think about them as one video at a time that I'm proud of that I put out, and they just happen to be all at the same time because I'm insane. What can I say? But you were just saying that like a band can react to or connect to an audience. One of the bands that I saw that I truly love, and you've probably seen them as well, Shinedown, is like the most open with their fans. Like you create a space where you feel safe and happy and you feel like you belong no matter what your background is, no matter what your political ideals are. Everything about a Shinedown show is community and family and friendship.
That's right.
And music celebration. That's like a huge thing that most of these bands that are growing these days are missing because they're so focused on numbers and algorithms and responses. It's like useless. What you need to do is create that connection that says, I care about you and I appreciate you for caring about me. That's all that it needs.
That's right.
And like that's huge.
Indeed.
Any band that can do that, props to them.
Indeed, and when it comes to bands like Shinedown, yeah, of course, I've always heard the song "Second Chance" a million times, right? Great song though, like you can't deny that it's a great song. But I just love the fact that what's the singer's again? Brent Smith.
Yes. Oh, he's so amazing.
Brent Smith, yeah. So the fact that he has other ways to get himself out there, right? So he was featured on that one song from Apocalyptica. I think it's called "Strong Enough."
Yes.
Yeah, from the Seventh Symphony album. Really, really great tune. With him in it. Great use of him, with those guys. And then they also have that one song that they use for Monday Night Raw on WWE as the opening theme song.
Enemies?
I think so. I think that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see, like this is such a prime example of like, well, there's other ways you can get yourself out there besides just releasing albums, music videos, and all that stuff. If you collaborate with Apocalyptica, or maybe you want to put your music towards a theme to a movie, TV show, sports, whatever it may be, why not go for it, right? Because you could hit a different audience that's going to enjoy your stuff. Uh, a sports fan could, or a WWE fan, for instance, in that case, could hear Shinedown's music for the first time, and that person will become a big fan of them because of WWE. That's just one of the many examples.
Yes. Oh, but you were talking about some collaborations, and I have to talk about their incredible choice to have Lizzie Hale on Breaking. What is that song called? I was gonna say Breaking Free. That's High School Musical. Behind My Head.
Yeah.
It's off of Sound of Madness as well. But when they brought her on, like, I don't know if you guys understand listening, there is a huge difference in politics, especially in American politics, that sometimes guides people to only listen to an artist that is in their ideology. Like, it's almost impossible to make room for anyone that is outside their ideology. So when I said Shinedown says, get rid of your baggage, get rid of those differences, and create that community, like, that's the big thing. Lizzie Hale, hardcore leftist, Brent Smith and Shinedown, I believe, centrist. I could listen to both of them collaborate. I can listen to both of them talk, even though they could have complete opposite views. They are friends, and you can feel that energy. Okay, let me get that song because it is so good. They also were featured on Here's to Us, the band group vocal edition on Hailstorm's album, A Strange Case. Right. And it was amazing to hear Brent Smith on one of her tracks after she was on one of his tracks. Sound of Madness. So.
That's right. Yeah.
So this album, Breaking Inside. Breaking Inside featuring Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm. By the way, Hailstorm, Eddie, I saw them last year. You ever seen Hailstorm?
Yeah. I seen them live. Okay, so I saw that same. Remember that same concert I told you where I saw Avenged Sevenfold back in 2009?
Yes.
They were at that same concert too as the opening band. So it was the lineup for that one that I went to was. Yeah.
Oh wait, no.
That it was
that would have been their first album, Hailstorm, the self-titled.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so at that same concert I saw Hailstorm. In that same lineup was Stone Sour, Hell Yeah. It was also Disturbed and Avenged Sevenfold. So great lineup.
Bro, wait, hold up. How many? I don't want to dox or anything, but how much were the tickets in 2009 for this? How do I get the time machine? Where's the DeLorean?
I forgot. What was that tour called? Oh, the tour was called Uproar Music Festival.
Upward Music Festival?
No, Uproar.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look up the set list for that day for every artist because that sounds absolutely epic.
Yeah. Oh, it was. Yeah. So anyways, so you were saying about Hailstorm?
Yeah. So I saw them last year. They were the co-headliner with I Prevail. I have all the footage. It's going to be on YouTube very soon, so you'll be able to see how they are now versus how they were in 2009. Bro, I gotta tell you. I've seen Red 3 or 4 times. I've seen Nickelback. I've seen Shinedown. I've seen TFK. I've seen these huge rock acts. I've seen Linkin Park. And when I tell you Hailstorm is rock and roll to the core, I wanted to stand up and applaud when they finished. Like, I wanted a standing ovation to be the final thing that I see when they left that stage. Like, I could not believe what I witnessed vocally from Lizzie. Incredible percussion skill from their drummer. I don't know if you had him when he was spinning up and down or upside down. He was doing that weird thing in the parking lot.
No, that didn't happen in 2009 for me. No,
did not happen for that. But did they all play drums together?
Yes, it did. Yes, that I
Okay,
remember.
so that still is the thing. I loved seeing that. I did not know they could all play drums, and to see everyone on the same rhythm, like it felt like a Blue Man Group show. It felt like a rock show. It felt
Yeah.
like a rock and roll classic show. It felt like a Joan Jett show. It felt like a Heart show. It felt like a Pat Benatar show, all in one. And
Yeah.
that is Hailstorm. Like they're so good, so good.
Exactly. Yeah, and you summed it up really nicely, and that's what it was from my personal experience back in 2009 when I saw them. And I'm just like, I remember they were still new, at least new to me,
Mhm.
and I was like, man, these guys are just amazing. They are going places, right? And I'm so glad I
They're
caught
going to
them
be
live in
huge.
their early days when I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So anyways, but yeah, but it just with you going to live shows, I like whether big or small, I just love the fact that you are willing to go to all these different shindigs for music. I still remember that the one that you told me about was when you saw an Elton John tribute group, right? And I know that usually you're not like a cover band kind of
Yep.
person, but
Yep.
then I remember like, you were going gaga over this one Elton John tribute group because they knocked it out of the park.
Yes.
And what songs were they doing it? Because I think you showed me a clip of them. I think it was it Yellow Brick Road or one of those songs? I forgot which one
Sorry
it was,
seems to
but
be
I
the
remember when you
hardest
showed me that one.
word.
Yeah, okay, that one. Yeah, and so when you showed
And
me that one, I
oh,
was just like,
beautiful, beautiful song. But
yeah,
this dude, like
yeah,
Elton Ron is the name. Elton Rhon. So it's like John, but it's
yeah,
Ron or R O
yeah. That's
R
right.
O
Yeah,
H N R O H N. My bad. I'm like I
that's
can't
right.
spell anymore.
Yeah,
Okay, Elton
yeah.
Ron. He will come around if you're in USA, if you're in Canada. I think he comes all the time. He's constantly touring, usually around summertime. This dude fully
That's
commits
right.
to being Elton at his prime. And like I'm talking costume change, I'm talking sound. The vocals are incredible. And I look for that when I am
Right.
hearing live music. It is very challenging to say a vocal sounds perfect. And that is with all the best bands I've seen. There are some people that do struggle, and it happens because it's either not their night or because they just can't sound as good as they do in studio. And that's fine. But when
Yeah.
you hear someone that is that good, like Red, like unbelievable how Chad Kroger of Nickelback could sound, the whole band could sound, Brent Smith of Shinedown, Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm, even Dan of Imagine Dragons, like all these people really know how to perform. So whenever I see
That's
that,
right.
I
Yeah.
praise it and I tell everybody like you gotta see them. There's no way you're gonna miss this.
It's just a shame that right now a lot of these concerts have gotten so expensive, right? Like I know
So
it's a
sad.
it's a yeah, it's a very sad topic to talk about, but it is one of those things we have to address. It's that we want to go see some big concerts like the ones that you've listed, and the way you described them, right? And I'm just like, man, like right now it's been really hard for a lot of us to be able to afford to go to these stadium arena concerts, but still at the same time it does give me an opportunity to be like, okay, well, what about those smaller scale bands that are playing at the theater, like the Orpheum Theater or somewhere like that, somewhere in that capacity. Well, I gotta take the opportunity now while I can, right? Just so because this is all we could afford for now. But it's like there's an advantage and disadvantage of it. It's like, yeah, the disadvantage, obviously you can't see your favorite big name bands at the arenas or at the stadiums, but at least the advantage I will say is that we can still see them, still see other artists that are playing the Orpheum Theater, like I said, or any other, like not too big, not too small size venues,
Dude,
right?
dude,
And
you
oh
gotta
man,
look
it's
on bands in town. You have to look on bands in town. It is like
true.
if you're a live music fan and you don't have Live Nation or bands in town, and you're getting those Spotify updates where these bands are coming close to you and you're not checking right when the moment is that they're going to be promoting it, like you got to get on that. It's important. I have
That's
put
right. Yeah.
myself in the position 3 times this year where I said, well, technically last year now, I said I needed to go to these shows and I made them happen. So here's what's coming up. All right, get ready. March,
All right.
end of March. No, sorry. Early April, Brooks and Dunn. End of April,
Yeah.
August Burns Red with Bullet for My Valentine and Trivium. Going into May, Ice Nine Kills. And finishing the whole
Nice.
year in August, Toto. So literally all of my faves that I was not able to see that have been on my bucket list for a long time, all in one day, all in one year, just because I focus on those moments that they are about to announce those ticket drops. And when those ticket drops happen, make sure if you are a super fan, you want to get their membership. Get their membership so you can get those tickets early. This is for anybody that is like, oh my gosh, that show will never be in my range. You just become a member. They'll give you a member price. It's like 50% off or so. I had to sign up. So I love Big Time Rush. I have probably made it very clear that I'm
Yeah.
not that big of a pop fan. They are an exception. Jesse McCartney is an exception, and Avril Lavigne is the
Yeah.
queen of exceptions. I wish I could see her, but she's very expensive. Outside of that, Big Time Rush, I signed up for their membership program because I needed to get tickets for the Forever
Yeah.
tour back in 2022.
Yeah.
And it was $100. Best $100 I ever spent. We got those tickets right off the bat. Best price that you possibly could.
Wow.
Saw the stage magnificently.
Wow.
Second time that we went, much more expensive because I was not a member. So please, if you can, help the bands, support who you really love, become a member. You don't have to, but if you want to get those tickets, if
Yeah.
you want to get them at a cheaper price, I know it sounds insane, but spend it to get that benefit. It's extremely important.
That's
And
right.
also, if you can
Exactly.
walk, don't pay for parking. Don't
Yeah.
pay for parking.
Public transit.
It's so expensive.
Yeah. Public transit or walking would help. So yeah.
Yeah, get dropped off, go Uber, do whatever the hell you want. But yeah, that parking price, oh man, there's some of them are 40, some 50. It's crazy. Oh, Ice Nine Kills, I should say,
Yeah,
is a
that's right.
2-night event. I got it for $100.
There you go. There you go, guys. Yeah, awesome. And you know what? And speaking of the experiences and everything like that, so Dan, I can't believe it. We've been talking for almost 2 hours, if you can believe it.
Oh yeah, I believe it. I'm a
but-
rambler.
Yeah, no, it's great, man. But we do have to end our program here tonight, Dan. But you know what? I would love to bring you in for a part 2 down the
Oh,
road.
we're definitely making
because
that
I feel
happen.
like, yeah, we're gonna make that happen for sure. But definitely for sure, like, dude, it's been such a great conversation with you, just to talk about all the stuff we love. Movies, music, TV shows, whatever, soundtracks, all that good stuff, man. Dude, I appreciate you making a time to be my guest on the Eddie Lamb Show today. It's been such a huge pleasure. So before we sign off, I just want to ask how can we find you on the interwebs?
On the interwebs, there is these things called link trees that I have found to be extremely beneficial to support all the artists on my podcast and everyone that I do reactions for. So please check out my link tree in the Instagram that I have, which is MediaManDan _pod, POD, and no relation to the band. I do love them though. I will say if you go to my link tree, you should be able to find all of my links there. If you don't want to do that, if you don't feel like that is your way of doing things, if it's too much of a chore for you, then feel free to go even further and go to Spotify, type in Media Man Dan Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Media Man Dan Podcast. I think it's on a couple other places that I didn't even put them up on. It's just using my code and uploading my stuff there. So you should just type in Media Man Dan Podcast on Google. You'll find my stuff pretty quickly. And then Media Man Dan, all one word, all together. You'll find me on YouTube, and Movie Man Dan on YouTube. I got a 2024 movie review video that's going to be dropping very soon. I have to put it together. My editor and I are going to be working our butts off to make sure that it is the best quality and it's going to be a lot of movies. I saw at least 28 movies.
Right
So
on.
yes, so much fun. Other than that, if you guys really, really want to support Media Man Fans, all one word, on Patreon, go and check that out. It's $1. And if you want to pay more, that's fine too, but it's $1. You get to see all the behind the scenes of the interviews that I've created and sometimes reactions that I
That's
create.
right.
And my favorite thing of all, my screw ups. So if you are okay with foul language, I say a lot to myself when I'm screwing up a take. It's really freaking funny.
All the outtakes possible.
Oh, yes, yes. We're going to make a big
Awesome.
blooper reel. I know it's going to happen. But either way, man, I appreciate
Yeah, for
you for
sure.
having me on. And for part 2, guys, you guys can vote if you want to. I think, Eddie, you're going to have it up on Spotify, right?
Yeah, this will be on Spotify and YouTube for this episode. So yeah.
Perfect. Either on YouTube, comment down below if you want him to be on my show for part 2, or if you wanted to see the poll, hopefully you know how to do that on Spotify, then you can vote if you want Eddie to be the guest or if you want me to be the guest for part 2. It's completely up to you guys. I want Eddie on my show regardless. I don't have to wait any longer than I already have. This moment right here was magnificent, a magical media driven experience with one of the greatest in the music business, in general, in the world, and one of the best friends I've created through social media, Eddie Lamb, the man, the myth, the legend. Always happy to talk with you, man.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it so much. Again, folks, MediaManDan is somebody you want to check out if you are into music reactions and commentary and all that stuff. And yeah, please check it out. Check out all his amazing stuff on his channel. With that being said, Dan, thank you again for being a guest on the show, and we will see you all next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode of The Eddie Lamb Show, a podcast dedicated to interviewing musicians and online content creators of every kind. If you would like to be a guest on the program, feel free to send me an email at eddielammusic@gmail.com. That's EDDIELAM music@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out my website at eddielammusic.ca. That's EDDIELAM music.ca. You can also follow me on social media. Username is Eddie Lamb Music. That's EDDIELAM Music on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning into our program. In the meantime, stay in touch, stay safe, and as always, stay awesome.